In this video, I will teach you how to perform qualitative analysis of interviews and go from raw transcripts such as this to a complete findings report like this using MAXQDA. My name is Bernard Mugo. I like to refer to myself simply as an academic. In the past 3 years, I've helped more than 200 PhD students analyze qualitative data and finally complete their thesis or dissertations. In the course of helping such a large number of students, I have gained invaluable experience of the best practices that you can use to perform qualitative analysis of your interviews and be able to retrieve quality findings. Let's first begin with opening MAXQDA. So I go and open MAXQDA, and I want to look at the functions that are in this tool, which is a tool that we can use for qualitative data analysis. This is MAXQDA. This is how MAXQDA opens, okay? And now I want to click on new, right? It's because we want to create a new project. Let's call this experiences with HF, heart failure, 2. And let's say this is how MAXQDA looks like. So MAXQDA has 3 main menus. We have the main menu, which has home, import, codes, memos, variables, analysis, mixed methods, visual tools, reports, and MAXDictio. Then we have the secondary menu, or the second menu from the top, which has text, PDFs, and tables, transcripts, focus group transcripts, images, audio, videos, survey data. These are places that you can import different forms of data, YouTube data, web pages, structured text, documents from Excel spreadsheet, reference manager, and all that. So on the left, we have a third menu which has document sets, codes, and sets. So this is where we import our documents. So let's go straight to having an example of a study that I'm going to use to teach you how to do qualitative data analysis with MAXQDA. Now, there's these 2 transcripts which I have, and I have an example of a study. But before I go to that, I like to be open on where I get the transcripts that I use for my videos, because I don't like to have a kind of a conflict of interest when I want to help someone, because I have a service which is a done-for-you qualitative data analysis service, and I also have consulting services. So I like my clients to know that I do not use their transcripts in my videos. For my videos, where do I get my transcripts? I get my transcripts from a website called Figshare. So let's search figshare.com. You can search figshare.com in your computer, and let's see what we have here. You can see these are different students like you who, after finishing their thesis and dissertations, decide to share their transcripts for other people to use, maybe to practice, and rather just to share with the world. So we have data sets which are quantitative, and we have qualitative data sets. For instance, these are transcripts for a study of the process of design for digital innovation portfolio management. This is where I normally get my transcripts, which I use as samples in my videos. Okay, you can see there are so many transcripts. Dialogical selves, exploring sameness, parental mentalization, so many transcripts that different students in different levels have shared. So if you want to get transcripts to practice data analysis before you begin your real project, this is the place to go. Now, with that out of the way, let's get back to our analysis. So for this video, I want to look at a study titled Experiences of Patients with Heart Failure. I have 2 transcripts, patient 1 and 2. These patients were talking about their experiences with heart failure. Here is patient number 1. You can see the interviewer asked them different questions. I've gone and ensured that all the questions are in bold because we want to get what these people are saying, okay? Now, let me import these 2 transcripts into MAXQDA, and let's see how do we do the first step of qualitative data analysis. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to follow the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework for thematic analysis. The Braun and Clarke 6-step framework for reflective thematic analysis includes the 6 steps that these two scholars suggest that we should follow when conducting thematic analysis. The Braun and Clarke 6-step framework includes familiarizing with the data, generating initial codes, searching for themes or developing themes, reviewing potential themes, which is step number 4. Step number 5, defining and naming themes. And step number 6, producing the findings report. So we are going to follow these steps and we are going to use MAXQDA. Now, the first step would be familiarizing with the data or the transcripts. I need to go to my transcripts and read them like a story with no skimming, read them deeply, so that I may understand the nuance of their responses and I will start noticing patterns. So when I'm done with that, the next step will be to import the transcripts into MAXQDA. So let's do that. There are two ways to import transcripts into MAXQDA. First, we can drag and drop the files in the documents section. So you see, drag and drop. You see? So we are able to import that. We can also import a transcript by clicking transcripts in the import button. Then I go to transcript without timestamps and click on the second transcript, and you see I imported the second transcript. So I have patient 1 and patient 2, two transcripts, right? So that's how we import. Remember, following the Braun and Clarke, after we import the transcript, we move to the second step of the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework, which is generating initial codes. Let me begin with defining a code. A code is a label or a statement to any information that's important to our research questions or objectives. Now, a code being a label or an interpretive statement means that a code can be 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, a sentence, or even a paragraph. But codes are normally precise. They are short and concise. So they are short and they have meaning. They are an interpretation or a label. So let me start with giving you an example of a code. Now, here we have a paragraph and we are going to read it together and then look at the codes that have been generated from this paragraph and then redefine what a code is again and then go and code our transcripts. Okay? Now, let's read together. Miss Jackson rises from her desk and announces, okay, you guys, let's get lined up for lunch. Row 1, 5 children seated in the first row of desks rise and walk to the classroom door. Some of the seated children talk to each other. Mrs. Jackson looks at them and says, no talking, save it for the cafeteria. Row 2, 5 children seated in the second row of desks rise and walk to the children already standing in line. Let's read the sentence that's labeled number 1, which has this code. So Miss Jackson rises from her desk and announces, okay, you guys, let's get lined up for lunch. Row 1, 5 children seated in the first row of desks rise and walk to the classroom door. Okay? So that statement or that sentence, some of the seated children talk to each other. So up to that point, that first sentence, the code is lining up for lunch. So it's a descriptive code which is describing what the students are doing. And number 2, Miss Jackson looks at them and says, no talking, save it for the cafeteria. Sentence number 2 is managing behavior. She's trying to manage behavior. So that's an interpretive code that interprets what the person or the subject is doing. Let's look at the third sentence. Row 2, 5 children seated in a second row of desks rise and walk to the children already standing in line. So number 3, lining up for lunch. Now, you see what we are doing here? Lining up for lunch is the first code, managing behavior is the second code, and lining up for lunch is the third code. So, from these codes, we can see that a code is a label or an interpretive statement to particular information that's important to our research objectives. And from here, we see that codes can either interpret, they can tell us what's going on, they can provide an interpretation of something that's not obvious. Let me interrupt this video for a minute and pose this question to you. Are you overwhelmed by qualitative data analysis? I've got you covered with 2 specialized services tailored just for you. But before I tell you of my services, let me first begin by informing you that I have an average 5-star rating from the previous clients that I've worked with both in the done for you and in the consulting service. Now, here are the two services that I provide to help you in analyzing your qualitative data. The first service is the done for you qualitative data analysis service. In this service, I handle the heavy lifting so you can focus on the bigger picture. My service includes meticulous manual coding, where I code every word for meaningful insights, theme development, where I identify patterns that matter the most, data visualization, where I provide stunning visuals to tell your data story, findings report, where I provide a ready-to-use findings report for the 4th chapter of your thesis or dissertation, and a walkthrough video recording, which is a step-by-step explanation of how I analyze your data using MAXQDA. The second service I provide is one-on-one MAXQDA consulting. In this service, we hop on a video call via Microsoft Teams or Zoom, and in just a few hours, I'll help you become a MAXQDA Pro. Whether you are a beginner or looking to refine your qualitative data analysis skills, I'm here to guide you every step of the way. So don't wait, contact me today. My details are in the description and in the pinned comment. Let's go back to MAXQDA and let's do some coding for our transcripts. Remember, the example study that I am handling is experiences of patients with heart failure. Put that in mind when we are coding, because that's our main objective, or that's our main title for our study. I go to patient 1 or transcript 1 and let's begin coding. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this retrieved segment section because we are going to use that later, and I'm going to show you how to use that later in the video. Let's just do some coding. Let's read the whole paragraph and then let's come back and code. So when did you get diagnosed as having heart failure? It's been 2 years since I got admitted here. It was in 2019 November. Before that, I was in Jubilee. It was diagnosed there. We were referred from there to here. So while I was on treatment, I was given date on Jan 3rd for open heart surgery. So while I was on treatment on November 24th night, suddenly I had a heart attack. I was put on ventilator. Doctor told I was almost dead. I was admitted here for 12 days. All the doctors were very cooperative and they saved me with their treatment. Surgery has not been done. Angioplasty is done. I was told surgery is not needed immediately. There were 5 blocks before. From then on, I have been on treatment here and has been becoming better. There is considerable improvement with the treatment. Today I've come for checkup. So I will come on the date they give and do checkup or tests and go. So there is a lot of codes here, but let's just focus on the question and how are we going to handle the questions. We can use color codes or we can use questions as containers. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to show you how to use your questions as containers. I'm not saying that we are doing a deductive approach. No, we are doing inductive thematic analysis. We are following the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework, and this is the second step. Remember, the first step is familiarizing with the transcript. The second step is generating initial codes. Let's highlight this question, okay? And copy it. Go to codes, click plus, and paste that question, and rename this to Q1, question 1, okay? So I can use colors or I can use questions as containers. For the purposes of this video, I want to use question as containers. In a past video that you can see, which I will link, I've used colors. So when did you get diagnosed as having heart failure? Let's click OK. You see that question. This question is not a code. No, it's a container which I'm going to use. It's like a bucket which I'm going to put the codes in. The water are the codes and the bucket is the container, right? When did you get diagnosed with as having heart failure? It's been 2 years since I got admitted here. It was in 2019 November. So this person is saying it was in 2019 November. So they were diagnosed in 2019 November. So I highlight just only that section. I right click. I go to code with new code. Okay. Select the first option. 2019 November. I want you to check the way I'm coding. Codes are like direct answers to the specific question the interviewer is asking. Then I drag and drop this code under question 1. So if I double click on this code, let's see what we have. Let's click on that patient or this transcript. You can see this is the code that is in that code. They were diagnosed in November 2019. Then they keep on talking. If you read this sentence from here, So while I was on treatment on November 24th night, suddenly I had a heart attack. I was put on ventilator. Doctor told I was almost dead. Don't worry about the grammar. This is what this person says. But I think they meant doctor said I was almost dead. I was admitted here for 12 days. Let's look at this statement where they are saying they got a sudden heart attack on November 24th. Here we have a code that we are going to leave outside there. We are not going to put it under any question. Or we can just highlight this and say this code is, so although we have the question as container, it doesn't mean we leave out important codes. We still code them. It's only that we don't assign them to any container. Let me do it so that you can understand what I mean. This person here, they are saying they have previously experienced complications. I want to press the Windows button and H in my machine, and I want to voice type. You see this one is listening to me now. So let's voice type. Previously experienced complications. So double click again so that you can see that statement. You see, on November 24th night, suddenly I had a heart attack. I was put on ventilator. Doctor told I was almost dead. I was admitted here for 12 days. This person has previously experienced complications related to heart failure. So previously experienced complications. Then all the doctors were very cooperative and they saved me with their treatment. This person is saying right click, or we can click on the second button here. It's the same. Grateful to doctors for quality treatment. Timely quality treatment. So grateful to doctors for timely quality treatment. You see that code? Okay. Again, these are the codes. Let's keep coding. There were 5 blocks before. I was told surgery is not needed immediately. There were 5 blocks before. From then on, I have been on treatment. So there were 5 blocks before. You see that is a complication. Previously experienced complication. From then on, I've been on treatment here and has been becoming better. This patient is, highlight that, click on this or right click, witnessing improvement based on current treatment. Okay. These are codes I'm generating. You can see how I'm coding naturally. I have an open mind. I'm doing inductive coding. Inductive means that we do not come to the data with any preconceived ideas. And the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework for doing thematic analysis is an inductive approach. Make sure you also watch my previous videos on inductive and deductive coding. Although in those videos I use NVivo, all these tools are the same. So the coding is the same. For this one, I'm doing inductive coding, meaning I'm considering sentence by sentence, line by line. There is considerable improvement with the treatment today. I've come for a checkup. So they are saying there is considerable improvement. So improvement based on current treatment. Again, this statement, I highlight it. So if I find a statement that matches an original code, I just drag and drop it inside the code. So here we can see the number changes to 2, meaning we have 2 quotes. Okay, let's double click. Click on these 2. And you can see 2 quotes. 2 quotes supporting 1 code. Now, you can see how we code very naturally. All these codes are not related to the question which I created here. But these codes, we are going to put them inside subthemes later. But they are important. When I'm coding, yes, I create questions as containers, but I also consider any emerging code, any code that emerges, or any statement that I think is important. I code it because that's the only way I can consider emergent ideas. Let's look at the second question. So, are you able to follow advices given by the doctor? For example, are you able to follow the diet changes as advised? Let's copy that. Let's come to the code section, plus sign. Paste that question, right? Delete these things that I don't like, then add the word or add Q2 in the beginning. So scroll using my arrow button and then call this Q2. Click OK. That Q2 means question 2. This is the second question. So are you able to follow the advices given by the doctor? Then they say, yes, we can code just that statement, but let's not code fast. Let's just read the whole paragraph. Yes, since I'm following whatever I'm being told, I'm better now. Before, I had a shop. Then suddenly, when I got this disease, I was not able to run it. Now, for more than 2.5 years, I'm at home only and following whatever the doctor is telling and eating the medicines correctly. I've become so much better. So, you see? So they say, are you able to follow advice? Let's just code this statement and say, they said yes, okay? So I code and say, follows doctor's advice. So this patient follows doctor's advice. For this code, I'm not going to leave it out there. I'm going to drag and drop it inside the container, which is question number 2. You see? And then, since I'm following whatever I'm being told, I'm better now. They have seen significant improvement after following doctor's advice. So let's code that. Okay? Right click or select here, then witnessed significant improvement in health as a result of following doctor's advice. Then I drag the code, drop it inside the question, you see? Then they say, before I had a shop, then suddenly I got this disease, I was not able to run it. Now for more than 2.5 years, I'm at home only and following whatever the doctor is telling and eating the medicine correctly, I have been so much better. So this statement, and following whatever the doctor is telling me and eating the medicines correctly, I have become so much better. That's another statement that supports improvement in health as a result of following doctor's advice. So I drag that statement and you see the number changes. Again, if I double click, you can look at the quotes, 2 quotes. So what do you notice about coding? That a code can be 3 words or a code can be 5 words. What we mean is a code is natural interpretation of what the participant or the interviewees are saying. Okay? Basically, that's what I am doing. Now, for the purposes of this video, I went ahead and did all the coding for these 2 transcripts and I got all the codes. Let me go ahead and reveal the codes that I got for these 2 transcripts after I conducted the second step in the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework, which is generating initial codes. Now, you see, I went ahead and did all the coding for both transcripts, both patient 1. As you can see, I double click patient 1. You see the codes I have. I did all this coding for patient 1. 2 years ago, grateful to doctors. All these are the codes I had for patient 1. And you can see I classified or I put the codes in the containers. The containers are the questions. And there are some codes that are not in any container like this. You see? There are codes that are lying not in containers. For instance, for the first question, when did you get diagnosed with heart failure? I have 2 codes. So there is a person who says when they were performing medical examination in order to move to another country, that's when they got diagnosed. And another says 2 years ago. Question number 2. So are you able to follow the advice given by the doctor? We have how many codes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 codes. Has witnessed significant improvement in their health. Follows dietary advice provided by the doctors. Monitors their blood pressure regularly. Takes medication as instructed by the doctor. Feels better as a result of following doctor's advice. So, do nurses call you? That's a question. They said, nurses call me frequently. That's the code. So, if there is any change in BP, what will you do? Patient responds to changes in their blood pressure by changing their dose of medication, right? Changing medication dose. When was the last time you faced some difficulties? November 2019 is when this person faced a difficulty. This person says they have not experienced any difficulties. So I go and code for every question that the interviewer is asking. And those are the initial codes. Number 2, or the second transcript, let's expand for you to see all these codes that I have. You see, I have all these codes. You can see I generated the 18 codes for the first transcript and 10 codes for the second. That's how we do initial coding. Remember, the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework is an inductive way. But before we move to the next step of the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework, I want to inform you that I'm going to share all these files. If you have MAXQDA, I'm going to share all these MAXQDA files so that you can go and open my work and scrutinize, so that you can understand the work and be able to do this yourself, okay? All for free. I'm going to share these files on the link in the description so that you can go and look at all these resources and try to understand my work. Having done or having completed initial coding, now let's move to the third step of the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework, which is developing themes. But before we develop themes, there are steps that are not highlighted in the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework, but they are very important. So there's this step. After we generate initial codes, we need to revise the codes before we move to the third step of the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework, which is generating themes. I went ahead and revised codes. So I copied, or I created another MAXQDA file and copied everything. And here we have a MAXQDA file on revised codes. I went and looked for the quotes and asked myself, do these codes make sense? Do they sound good? Like, have I followed grammatical rules? Are there any errors? So I went and revised the codes, and you can see this is my revised codes MAXQDA file. So for MAXQDA, every time we want to create a new, or we want to do or to advance in our steps, we have to go and copy the original file, right? Then right click, paste, then rename it. Initial codes, then I paste. I have a copy of initial codes. I rename that to revised codes. So that's how I got here. You can see now I have better codes. Period of heart failure diagnosis. We have very clear codes. Views on ability of doctors to advise, for instance. Views on ability to follow doctors' advice, for instance, dietary change advice. Takes medication, monitors their blood pressure, all that, right? Then, feedback on nurses' call, recent health challenges, all that. So, these are the revised codes. Now, with the revised codes, I can move to the third step of the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework, which is developing themes. Now, to develop themes, we need to look at the pattern of shared meaning across the codes and combine them together to form themes. We have to ignore the containers, which are the questions. Now, this is where we need to ignore the containers. We need to ignore the containers, and we are going to combine codes based on shared meaning to develop themes. Then we are going to review the themes, and then we are going to add descriptions. And by doing that, we will have conducted thematic analysis using MAXQDA. So let's look at the third step, which is developing or generating themes. Now, you remember that the study that we are exploring in this tutorial is experiences of patients with heart failure. If you remember, we have our revised codes. As you can see, these are very clean codes. So I want to move from codes and containers to preliminary themes. What do we do? The first thing that we do in MAXQDA, and this is the revised codes file. So I copy this file. Okay. I want just to put it in another place. I paste this file. Then I rename this to preliminary themes. Okay. I'm just tracking how I'm moving. I will have very many files. I'll have initial codes file, revised codes file, preliminary themes file, final themes files. So these MAXQDA files are evidence of how I've moved in my work. So preliminary themes. And I want to open this project. So I double click on this project to open it. And let's go and start moving from codes to themes. To move from codes to themes, what we are going to be doing basically is to look for a pattern of shared meaning across code, irrespective of the questions they came from. Let's ignore the containers and now focus on meaning. Okay? We look at codes irrespective of where they come from, and we combine them to form themes. Let's look at that. For example, if you look at Q1, period of HF diagnosis, let's try to look at this. These two codes say when they were diagnosed. So, heart failure diagnosis. So, I can rename this to, I right click, I go to properties and say, now you can see I'm trying to rename the containers. Some of them we are going to combine them, so don't worry. We are looking for a pattern of shared meaning. Moment of heart failure diagnosis. So you see, I don't consider the questions much. Then this one is views on ability to follow doctor's advice. Let's look at the codes. Dietary advice, significant improvement, views on ability to follow doctor's advice, for instance, dietary change advice. So this one, we can rename it into a preliminary theme called views on ability to follow doctor's advice. Let's not worry about descriptions. We can add those later, okay? So if you want to add a description, what you just need to do is to go to right click, memo, and then when you are doing preliminary themes, you can see I've added descriptions. So it's good to describe. Let's look at another theme and let's keep revising. Ability to work currently, right? Ability to work currently, not able to work. If you look at all these questions, you can see that we have a prevalent or an emergent theme that's coming out. And the theme that I can see so far, looking at these three containers, is impact of heart failure on patient's life. With that, we can see the moment of diagnosis, ability to work. You see, that affects the impact. Then we have responses to change in blood pressure, feedback call on nurses. We also have another thing that is emerging, like strategies or activities that patients, or strategies for patients to manage their current condition. We can see that's ability to follow doctor's advice and that. So what if I wanted to create these preliminary themes and combine them? This is how we do it. I go to the code section, and now this is not revised codes. I go to properties and rename this to preliminary themes, okay? And remember, we are considering shared pattern of meaning. So preliminary themes. One preliminary theme that we can observe is heart failure diagnosis and impact on patient's life. Let's have that preliminary theme. So I click plus, let me voice type, mouse, or I press the Windows button and H. Heart failure diagnosis and impact on patient's life. You see, that's a preliminary theme. So you see that theme, where did I get it from? We can see moment of heart failure diagnosis. We put it under that theme. We are just looking for a pattern of shared meaning, by the way. Heart failure diagnosis and impact on patient life. Ability to work currently. That's an impact of heart failure. Okay? Right? Then we have current experiences with physical difficulties. Is that not an impact? So I drag and drop that under theme 1. We then reorganize that later, don't worry. Reported difficulties in accessing services in current hospital. Lifestyle changes as a result of heart failure diagnosis. Right? I think that one also falls in heart failure diagnosis and impact on patient's life. So activities to learn more about heart failure, know-how in using Android phone, opinions and all that. Then we also have another theme on opinions on the care that patients have received after their heart failure diagnosis. Let me form that theme. So this one can be theme 2. Views of patients on the level of care they have received after heart failure diagnosis. You see, I have theme 2, views of patients on the level. Remember, these are preliminary themes. We can always edit. We have level of care. We can see this person. Activities to learn more, or views of patients on level of care. So feedback on nurses call, right? Then reported difficulties in accessing current services in hospital. You see? Then let's find another one. Views on, that's an application. So you see, that's another theme. What's another theme that we have? We can see another, this container. Let's drag and drop it there. Opinions on level of care received. So views on patients on level of care. Feedback on nurses. Difficulties in accessing services. You see, this is how we form themes. Now, we also have another thing, which is views on ability to follow doctor's advice. Responses. So ability to follow doctor's advice. I think that one is an impact on patient life. But let's just check. Recent health challenges. Responses to changes in blood pressure. So I see another theme, which is impact of heart failure or health challenges as a result of heart failure. Let's have that theme 3. health challenges as a result of heart failure. Theme 3. Click OK. We can see this one. Response to changes or recent health challenges. Drag and drop it there. We can also see views on ability to follow doctor's advice. I think that one has to be on response to changes in blood pressure, lifestyle changes, activities to learn more. I see another theme. Theme 4. Strategies adopted by the patient to manage heart failure condition. You see? So they have response to changes in blood pressure, drag and drop it there. Lifestyle changes, right? They also have ability to follow doctor's advice, right? Activities to learn more about heart failure, not opinions, how to improve. So we also have these three, or these containers. If you look at them, these are information seeking behaviors by the patients to learn more. Theme 5, strategies by the patient to gain more information about heart failure condition. So properties, theme 5, let me put a number. Theme, remember these are themes. I will come back and edit the sub-themes, so don't worry. And for every theme, we should go and right click and go to properties, or we should go and right click and go to memo and add a description. You'll notice I have descriptions, but I'll show you those later. So activities to learn more, Android phone, opinions, and all this, I want to drag and drop them under theme 5. This theme 10, I want to bring it here. Opinions related to mHealth application. These are gaining more information. And that theme, we can always rename it into a better theme. So I drag and drop. Perfect. Now look at what we have. Preliminary themes. Under the themes, we still have containers. Now we go and rename them. Now the containers will become the sub-themes, okay? For example, moment of HF diagnosis. Go to properties, right click, go to properties. This one will become sub-theme 1. Moment of HF diagnosis under theme 1. Then heart failure impact on patient's life. Current experiences with ability to work currently. Transform that into sub-theme 2. So are these patients able to work as a result of heart failure? You see how we move from codes all the way to sub-themes all the way to themes, right? We use a recursive approach or a circular method. Then we have sub-theme 3. Look at that. You can see for all my sub-themes I have memos. Let's look at the memo. Memos are like descriptions. So sub-theme 3, current physical difficulties experiences by the interviewed heart failure patients, right? Let's look at another one here, right? Right click, go to memo. You can see this sub-theme represents the exact moment where the interviewees were diagnosed. This sub-theme represents the exact moment when the interviewees were diagnosed with heart failure. You can see. So I'll go and do the sub-themes and clarify. We can even edit sub-themes. Let's say like a sub-theme doesn't sound the way I want it to sound. I can just edit here. So let's save that. Let's look at another theme. Let's start with feedback or reported difficulties in accessing services. Let's rename that to sub-theme 1. Under theme 2, we have sub-theme 1. Right? So sub-theme 1 under theme 2. Then we have feedback on nurses' calls. Right? Sub-theme 2. Right? Then we have opinions on level of care received. Sub-theme 3. Right? So that's what I'm going to do for all the themes. Then I'm going to go in and check the codes again. When I check the codes, I rename the codes to make them fit my meaning. Not change them, but refine. I keep refining the subthemes. I keep refining the themes. I'll keep refining and refining until I get to the final point, which is having final themes. So let's open this NVivo file and see the final themes that I got. So I went and revised the preliminary themes over and over again until I got final themes. Now you can see this is my final themes. Okay, how many themes did I have? 5 final themes. HF diagnosis and associated physical challenges. So the themes that I showed you previously, that's not the final point. I went and refined them again. And if you look at this theme and look at the memo, and let's read. This theme represents the moment when the interviewed patients were diagnosed with heart failure and the general physical challenges that the condition has brought in their life. So that's the final theme. You see the sub-themes: period of HF diagnosis, responses to changes in blood pressure, recent health challenges, and current experiences with physical difficulties. We have a second theme: following doctor's advice and role of HF management. So, has witnessed significant improvement. These are codes. In some instances, we have theme, sub-themes, and codes. Theme, sub-themes, and codes. And in some instances, we have a theme that is connected directly to codes. This is a natural process of meaning making, inductive thematic analysis. Finally, this is the structure. When I have the final themes, and I want to move from final themes now, I have reviewed and refined the themes. So I began with familiarizing the transcripts. I generated initial codes. I revised the codes. I defined and started generating themes. I reviewed and refined the themes. I added description for every theme. For every theme you see, go to memo, you can see a clear description. So the final step of the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework for thematic analysis is writing the findings report. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go to the report section, export, and I want to export the code system, or also called the code book. I click on Word document, go to reports, export, code system, Word document, and I'm going to save this as code system 678. I just want to show you this code system, and let's save it in the documents. Save that. It will ask you include memos, and I say yes. So let's look at that now. We have to include memos. You see, this is the code system that you have here. Look at these numbers, they are zeros. We can just delete them. When you are formatting your code book, we just want to delete this 0. So the number zeros and these numbers generally do not mean anything in thematic analysis. We don't need to quantify, right? But you can see I generated 28 codes, but let's just go in the main themes and sub-themes and delete the zeros. So this is the code book that we have. We have clear theme, sub-theme codes. This is the first thing that we export from MAXQDA, which is the code system. Another thing we can export in MAXQDA, if I go back to MAXQDA, is something we call the code segments. So if you go to MAXQDA, press Control and click on a document to activate the document, okay? And now you have seen that I had minimized this retrieved segment. I have come and clicked on it. So I want to have all the coded segments here. So let's go and also activate all the themes and their subcodes, okay? So every theme, I activate it and its subcodes. So by clicking Control and activating, Control and click. Now we have all activated sections. Let's go to export. This arrow or this button here, let me cancel, I'm moving too fast. This button, export Excel file. And let's go to document name. Let's not have position, weight, and all those. And let's have this, okay? So they're asking if I need the memos. No. So I click OK. And I want to save this as coded segment 678. Again, this is just a random number. Let's save this. Perfect. So let's go and open that Excel file. Right. We double click on it. Perfect. You see? Let's expand this so that you might see what we got here. Look at what MAXQDA gives us. Final themes, theme 1, HF diagnosis, sub-theme, this, and then this is the code. So we can always create more columns or have more columns, or generally this is the coding structure. So this is what we are doing. You can see that MAXQDA shows us the theme. The theme 1, HF diagnosis. The sub-theme, period of HF diagnosis. The code, 2 years ago. And the quote. This is not, I renamed this to participant quote. Let's look at another example. Theme 4, although they are not organized in order, you can see it's very good. Theme 4, level of care received for heart failure patients. The sub-theme is opinions of level of care. Then the code I made is grateful to doctors for life-saving treatment. And now, having gotten the coded segments, we move to the final step, which is reporting the findings. Now, to report your findings, you have to do it manually. To do the findings manually, we simply open a Word document, right? And we begin with the data analysis process. So in the first section here, let me voice type. The first section will be data analysis process. So for the data analysis process, I'm going to explain how I started the thematic analysis. So I can say that for the study titled Experiences of Patients with Heart Failure, the researcher chose to utilize the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework for doing thematic analysis. The Braun and Clarke 6-step framework for doing thematic analysis involves 6 steps, which include, so you can see there are some few errors in my voice typing, but I'll go and edit this. So for the first section here, I'm going to describe the data analysis process. Then I'm going to come to the next section, which will be the findings. Now, for the findings, I'm going to use the code system, and then I'm going to go to my MAXQDA file and extract the quotes. Let's see what we might do here. If you look at the MAXQDA project, you can see we had 5 themes. So I can introduce my report as, having conducted thematic analysis, the researcher developed 5 main themes. This included, I'm going to introduce all the 5 themes. You remember them? We have them here, so don't worry, we have them. This is theme 1. I copy that, right? Remember, now we are reporting the findings, and I'll show you the complete findings report, which I've already written, so you don't have to stress. And I'm going to attach this as a sample so that you can follow along. So let me just put 2 for now. So I'll go and list all of them. Then now the themes will become like the headings. After I list all the themes, I'm going to copy this theme, and now I'll start discussing theme 1. And theme 1, remember, we have a clear description that we got from the code system. Let's look at the description. This theme represents this and this. So that will be the first statement in my report. So in my report, we write it in past tense, right? The report should be in past tense. So I'll say this theme represents or represented the moment where the interviewed patients were diagnosed with heart failure and the health and general physical challenges that the condition brought in their life, right? So this is the description. Then I explain each code or sub-themes. So for this theme, you can see we have very many sub-themes. How many? 3, 4 sub-themes. So I'm going to say that this theme was developed by a combination of 4 sub-themes, including I'm going to highlight the sub-themes, then I'm going to discuss the sub-themes and highlight the codes. Now, let me show you the complete findings report that I have just written down. You can see I'm going to attach this findings report. so that you can go read and imitate. You can see the first thing that I do is to describe the data analysis process that I followed. I followed the Braun and Clarke 6-step framework for thematic analysis. And when we did all these steps with you, we familiarized with the data, we generated initial codes, we looked for a pattern of shared meaning across the codes to generate themes, we reviewed and revised the themes, we defined and named themes we defined and named the themes by adding a description in the memo section, and we wrote the findings report. So this is basically what I have. Another thing that I like to do is to draw charts. These ones are drawn in Word. I like to draw in Word because it looks better. So they are drawn in words. So these are kind of charts that we can get, and this is generally the report telling the story. And the report, we write it ourselves creatively. So after analysis, you can be able to write a report. So I have a 7-page report which I'm going to attach. You can see even in my report I have references. So basically that's what we have. In MAXQDA, we can also export some visuals. If you go to MAXQDA and go to Visual Tools, you can have a word cloud and you can drag and drop either documents that you want here. So I want to drag patient 1 and patient 2. Drag, drop patient 1, drag, drop patient 2, click OK. So you can see this is kind of a word cloud of all the words that were mentioned in the transcripts. I don't like using word clouds, but if you want one, you can draw this in MAXQDA. You can also get other kinds of visuals like code line that shows all the activated codes, or click OK. So like, where was the coding? These numbers represent the lines. If you look at MAXQDA, you can see they number every line 1, 2, 3, 4. So that visual is just showing the line where a certain code was made. For example, 2 years ago came from between line 4, 5, and 8. Then this code, patient response to any challenges, came from between line 25 and 28. So that's basically a code line. Again, I don't like using this. Generally, I like drawing charts in Word and finishing my findings report. So that's how we conduct qualitative data analysis using MAXQDA. Thank you for paying attention to this kind of long tutorial, but I hope it benefits you. Remember, I'm going to attach all the resources that I generated for this tutorial here. You can see I will attach the transcripts for those who want to go and redo the work. I will attach all the MAXQDA files, moving from initial codes, revised, preliminary themes to final themes. I will attach the code system and code segments. I will attach the coded transcripts. By the way, we can export the coded transcripts in MAXQDA. You can see the codes that we developed here. So how do we get this as a by the way, before we are done with this session? How do we get that? So we just go to MAXQDA and we click on print, right? You see print is the one that includes the coded segments, and then send to Microsoft Print to PDF. Select that option. I have a printer, but I won't select that. Select Microsoft Print to PDF and save your document. You will get your coded transcripts showing where the codes come from. And this is very good to attach in your appendix of your work or your thesis or dissertation. Remember, if you are feeling stuck with your data analysis chapter, don't stress. I'm here to help. I offer done for you qualitative data analysis using MAXQDA, and my done for you service includes coding, theme development, and visualization. On the other hand, if you prefer to learn and do the analysis yourself, I provide one-on-one MAXQDA consulting where I'll guide you step by step to master MAXQDA in performing qualitative data analysis. Reach out to me right now. Check the description for my email and link to my website. Thank you.